Hi, welcome back to Broken and Brilliant. I'm Carrie O'Toole with Carrie O'Toole Ministries, and we are starting up the second part of a discussion here with Heidi Treibel. And if you haven't watched the first part, you need to do that first, because we just went through your traumatic, heart-wrenching, and heartbreaking story of 2 miscarriages, and then birthing your son, Elliot, after months of up and down and fear and anxiety, but trust and belief that he was going to be okay.
Yeah.
And then he was born
Yeah.
and lived for 5 days,
Yeah.
and then he died.
Yes.
And this was 2 years ago.
Yes.
And so that's where we ended our last podcast, that I couldn't even finish the podcast. We just cut it off.
Yeah.
Because this is a tough topic,
Yeah.
but many people experience this or
Yeah.
know someone, or
Yep.
you know, and what we were talking about just as we were preparing here to go into this second part was, it's so important because Elliot exists. He
Yeah.
existed, and he was real,
Yeah.
and we're honoring him, and we're
Yeah.
honoring what your family has been through by sharing the story. And my hope and prayer is that this will honor others as well.
I hope so too.
Because it's not just for you, it's
No.
not just for us.
Yeah.
So let's talk. You know, you and I have met for lunch several times over the last couple of years, and you also have a blog. Can you tell everybody about your blog real quick?
Sure. Yeah. I named it Raw and Filtered. A little play on, you see the honey that's like raw and unfiltered. And I remember seeing that and thinking, I feel so raw. Yeah, I'm unfiltered. But then I thought, no, I'm not. I'm not that edgy. I'm somewhat filtered because I have my own like journal where I write out everything, all the cuss words, all the run-on sentences, and and then I do filter it because I do have, when it all comes down to it, still sometimes, to my own surprise, I still have a hope, and I have an anchor in Jesus that even when I'm so mad at him, I can't even like do a thing. It's still there. So I do feel like there's a filter through him. So that's why I named it rawandfiltered.com.
Well, your blog has touched me. Every time you write something, I read it, and it just, because it is so raw.
Yeah.
And I don't mean raw in a way that it's vile or
Right.
anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just really honest.
Yeah.
And stuff that people think but maybe don't say
Right.
sometimes.
Right.
And I think it's important.
Yeah.
Because other people then know it's not just me.
Yeah.
You mean
Yes.
Miss Heidi?
Right? Miss Heidi from
Miss
school?
Heidi from school thinks this way and has these
Right,
thoughts and these
right.
emotions.
Yeah.
I think it's so important.
Yeah.
And let's talk just a little bit about what your journey has been like since the miscarriage of the 2 babies
Yeah.
and then the death of your little boy.
Yeah.
What has that been like for you? Let's talk about in your family. Let's talk about in your faith journey, because I know that really rattled your faith.
Yes. Yes. I had this, I still have this visual image, though it's kind of changed, and I don't know how it got there, except it just made sense. So my faith, it felt like leading up prior to Elliot's death, I picture as this beautiful, clear mirror, just pure and innocent, really. I mean, the miscarriages shook my faith in the way that you go, why? But I still had this sense of, well, if God's in control, then there must be a reason why. So I just have to trust that. Even though that didn't really, if I look back, I'm like, I don't think I really felt good about that, but it felt maybe like a lack of faith to think otherwise, and that was kind of how I had been trained, in my life, that you just trust that God's in control. And but so when Elliot seemed to be this fulfillment of a promise, it was like the most beautiful childlike faith. I can even remember waking up to go visit him again when I didn't know he was about to die, and just the happiness, like God did it, And then the moment he died, it was like someone took a hammer and shattered that mirror to dust, and it was gone. I mean, it was like a pile of you can never fix it. You can never fix it. And that's how it felt. Like that's all there was for a while. I tried to. I wanted to lean on God. I didn't know what else to do as a Christian, as someone who's always believed God is there and loves me, and yet this happened, and it happened actually contrary to what I thought God said. That was probably the biggest blow.
I get
really.
that.
You get that.
I get that.
You get that. Yes. That was as big a blow to my faith as the actual event of Elliot dying.
Right. What it means about God and what it means about your faith, and is he real,
Yes.
and can I trust him, and do I even hear him, or am I
hear
totally
him?
screwed up?
Yeah.
And was any of this real?
Yes.
Or is he playing cruel jokes?
Right? Or is it all just our imagination?
Yeah.
That has come. Everybody who said yes, I heard that too, and yeah, I mean, it made me question everything. I mean, from his does he actually exist then, to well, if he does, what kind of God is he, to what does prayer do then? I mean, I think hundreds of people were praying for Elliot, and he still died. What's the point? Like, a lot of cynicism came in, and a lot of just, kind of the ugly things you never want to think fleetingly go through your head here and there. They all just were there all the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't care. And
you can just go down that path and hang out there.
You can hang out there. You can hang out there. Yeah. And it was it still can be weird and awkward to say, go to church or do a Bible study or try and pray, especially with other people, kind of fitting into like the faith mold I was in before feels forced and awkward now. And I'm still figuring out, well, then where do I fit? Can I still be in those groups and environments and have a place?
If you can't sit with a smile on your face and
then it feels
be
like,
happy all the time.
I don't know if I belong here. It's so, but through time, there have been ways in which I feel like what I've pictured now is something different. Like the mirror was shattered, and so what I picture now is like picking up these little shards of the way I see it now is like I just throw out maybe what I once assumed about God that isn't necessarily true, and I just go, okay, I might come back
Pitch
to that.
that
Just
one.
pitch that one. But when I find some nugget that I really believe this is true. Like I choose to, because I have to, believe this life is not it, and that I will see Elliot again. So I put that back, and I picture it as like it won't be that pretty mirror ever again. It's gonna be this funky mosaic that other people might think is a little weird,
But it's yours.
but it's mine, and it will be beautiful in its own way. But I'm still working on it. It might take the rest
And
of
the
my
pieces
life.
aren't all there yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some are crooked, and they're not. I guess that's a metaphor.
A really good picture.
Yeah, and that's the best I can like explain it. And a lot of blogging has helped. It's usually if some like thing about grief or thing about faith just gets in my head, like I think it's actually like this, or this is how it feels. I had this realization right after Elliot died that I can't wait 6 months to talk about how it felt 6 months ago. I won't really remember.
No.
I want to share it now. Otherwise, it's not genuine. And yes, and some of it has made me feel self-conscious. A lot of the faith struggles and anger towards God, there's part of me that I'd probably never say it in person because I'm not that bold, but behind the safety of the computer, you can type it and be like, this is what I really think. And just
and your perspective may change 6 months from now, and that's okay. Then you can write about that. But at this moment in time, this is how it feels. This is how this impacted me.
And it's like I didn't want to forget that. I didn't want, me in 2 years to forget what it was like. I needed like evidence. This is what it's like. And even now, going back and reading some, I will go, oh yeah, that's how it felt the day after or 2 months after, and how lonely it was, and the aftermath of having a baby and coming home without a baby.
Oh man.
Is
And not just having a baby, but having an emergency cesarean.
emergency C-section, things like your milk coming in that people don't think about, that are their own traumas. Having to plan a funeral, like for your infant child, is, I mean, there's no good way. I can separate myself from it a little 2 years later, but when I was in it,
No.
the horror.
Well, and you think about like even all of the pregnancy websites, or the what to expect when you're expecting, or any, which is an old book that was from back from my days, but
yeah.
Anytime you're thinking about those type of things, there's nothing in there for if you have a cesarean emergency and then your baby dies, here are the steps you need to take.
No,
That's not
There's
in print.
no, and I think that's what can make it feel so lonely, and yet, in a sense, I feel thankful that we live in a time when there's more community
Yeah.
than
You can
even
find
10
the
years
people
ago.
now. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, when we were going through our trauma, Facebook didn't exist.
Ugh.
And it was
Yeah.
so horribly lonely. And so I'm imagining
Yeah.
we can at least now find others.
Yeah.
They may not be next door or even in our town, but they're out there.
Yeah.
And they're speaking and they're
Yes.
supportive.
Yeah, and trying to educate others that, of course, we should talk about this, and that just because miscarriage might be common doesn't mean it's not traumatic
Right.
and devastating,
Right.
and that different women and families will experience it differently, and that you don't stop missing a baby who dies just because you didn't get to know them as long. They're just things that, you hear about stories from decades ago when, oh yeah, my grandma lost a baby, but we never talked about him. We're going to talk about ours. We are.
Hate to tell you, but this generation,
In this
we're doing
generation,
it.
we talk about it, and the groups make that validated, really. So I'm thankful that they have helped me. My Facebook group, my PPROM group, and then there's some local organizations that have been really healing. Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep.
Yeah, tell us about that one.
That one is, I didn't utilize their photography services, but that's their main ministry, is when a baby dies, to have a trained photographer take newborn photos with the parents and the baby and siblings and whoever, and they take the most beautiful pictures. A teacher from Jim Elliot, his family utilized them, and now his wife is the executive director. And
and if you've never been through something like this, that may seem morbid.
Yeah.
It may seem like, why would you want pictures of your dead baby?
yeah, but you do.
Why would you want those pictures?
Why would you want those? You will never get any other pictures. You never get to watch your child grow up and smile for the camera and lose their first tooth. And when you have to give that baby to a hospital social worker, knowing, except for the funeral, you'll never see your child again, you want every single, I have scoured every picture I ever happened to be in where I was pregnant with Elliot. Anything we took in the hospital, anything, and it's all saved.
It's
because
precious.
There is that is all there is. It's finite. You don't think about that with your kids who are living. If I don't get a cute picture today, I'll take one tomorrow. And we all hope and plan for tomorrow, and we should. But when you know there is no more tomorrows, you want every single memento and photo. And the way that Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep does it so beautifully and respectfully, and cute outfits and cute scenery, and they're beautiful. And and I hope that breaks the stigma of there being something morbid or wrong with that.
Right.
That if people really think, well, if that had been your baby, you would want pictures too. And there's another organization, Walk With Me, is a local Denver organization who, they're just amazing, that they serve families who lose infants after, I think, 20 weeks or so, and just love on the families. That's their main goal. I mean,
They just walk through it.
they walk with you.
Yeah.
Yes, they the founders themselves lost their son, and
That's so important, because when you don't know what's coming and you don't know what to expect and you don't realize the emotions you're going to feel, if there's somebody who's even just a few steps ahead of
Yes.
you and can say, walk here,
Yeah.
here's a pitfall you might fall
Yes.
in, let me just guide you in how to navigate this little
Yeah.
place.
yeah,
How do you talk to your other children about this? How do you, if you want to talk about it in a Christmas card, or what do you do in these certain situations? How do you do this? How do you
Right.
navigate this? And you've got somebody else who can say, you don't have to think this all up again, because
Right.
there's too much
there is.
going on anyway. So to have somebody walk you through that.
It's and their honor for all the babies that they just plaster every event, every gift it's your child's name. They're so aware of the power of saying Elliot, putting Elliot on things they send me. They recently organized and paid for a tree planting at a park near our home, and got a plaque made that'll hang in City Hall, and just
Wow.
like it says Elliot Treibel. Like, it feels sometimes like no one will ever know about him, and I feel this determination to be protective of, well, for my part I'll make him known, but when others do it too, it's like it's love. It is such an expression of love and healing, and it propels me to want to do that for other people
Yeah.
a lot.
Well, isn't that the way it works?
Yeah.
We go through something horrific, and I mean, we've been talking about our faith and all of that, and I can't remember the scripture, but the one where he comforts us, and then so that we can then
Yeah.
comfort
Yep.
others.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
What about your girls? Where are you guys at now? I mean, how was this for them going through that, and then where are you guys at as a family now?
We've been, it's been an interesting journey. We ended up, that first year after Elliot died, I stay home with them. I homeschooled them. I was going to go back to maybe part-time teach, and I said, no, I'm just going to be home with them. And we really, I feel like we were always fairly intentional about spending time together as a family, but more so, it felt like this, we are going to use our Elliot as a catalyst for making sure we are making memories together.
You're very intentional.
And cherishing and doing fun things that, yeah, sure, we have chores to do this weekend, but let's go to the mountains, and not worry about the little stuff so much. So I feel like in that way, that's been a gift Elliot's given us, is just the gift of intentionality and pushing through the mundane of life to really cherish. And yet at the same time, there were so many tears. I couldn't get through any day that first year without needing to be alone to cry for at least an hour. Sometimes I could do a little less, but I would even have play dates and say, you need to leave by noon. I have to cry. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Schedule
how
it
else.
in.
I
Mark
have
it
to
on your
schedule it in.
calendar.
Every
Eat
single
lunch,
day.
cry. Yeah.
And then I had to do something kind of to process Elliot. I made a scrapbook. I made a video. I organized all his pictures. Every single day I had to do a little something. And I really did that. And we went, last year we decided, what we could do every year is on those 5 days, because they're going to be hell in a way to remember, but we can make them something beautiful. And we'll take a family trip, family vacation from May 29th to June 3rd, Elliot's days. So last year we took our first Elliot trip, and this year we took another one, and it was really sweet. And the girls, I love that it also brings up his name with the girls. Where are we going on our Elliot trip this year? And do you remember on our Elliot trip when we did this? And just thinking, look at how he influences our life, making these memories that his name is spoken and that he's inspired. He also inspired us to become foster parents, and I needed something to do, and I don't know, part of me looks back and I'm like, oh, was I really ready for that? I did it. I needed to do something, and I did it, and I'm thankful we did it. It was hard. We got licensed So like in the summer of 2018, I got our little foster son at the end of August 2018, and it was hard. He was 2 at the time. And you know, the girls had processed losing Elliot differently. My oldest was very sad at first, and then she was okay.
Mm-hmm.
My younger was opposite. She was kind of didn't understand at
Yeah.
first, and still as time goes on, it hits her and she cries. And then we got our foster son, and that just threw in a new dynamic.
What do you do with this?
Oh, and we have a 2-year-old boy who's taking all their stuff, and mom still needs time to cry. And you know, it was good and bad. And now that I can look back on it, though, I feel like this image came to me that I feel like that experience of having him was like a defibrillator.
Mm.
Like I had like died with Elliot, and I was trying to walk around dead and trying to function, and getting our foster son with all his needs and all the extra requirements, and okay, I gotta wake up. I gotta get going, and I can still be sad. I will always be sad. This little boy needs me right now. My girls need me because this little boy is wrecking their room, and I gotta
re-engage here.
Re-engage.
Yeah.
That's a good word for it. Because I don't know if I was really engaged that first year. I tried to be
Well, you were as much as you could.
as much as I could.
Yeah.
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 I have to remember that. So we had him for 6 months, and he was reunified, and we're happy for him, and we're still in touch with him, which is a really huge blessing.
Yeah.
And that then led to where we're at now, that we have decided to adopt internationally, and we'll start that process soon, now that we have a new house. It's big enough to accommodate more kiddos.
Yeah. Yeah. And life goes on.
It does. It does. It felt, I think, especially right after losing a child, it feels so inappropriate for life to go on. Like, life should know better.
Yes.
How?
You know, I remember when my dad died 20-some years ago. When he died, I just remember being offended that people were out to lunch or
What were they
walking
thinking?
in the sunshine. Like, don't you know?
This is...
How could you be so insensitive to just go to the swimming pool today?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And that's just our shock, our trauma, our wounding. It's just all of that. And as we move through, we start to re-engage. You know, I heard. Do you know the song? I'm thinking you do. "Tell Your Heart to Beat Again" by Danny Goki. Yeah, the story behind that was he talked to a heart surgeon who did heart transplants.
Oh, wow.
And he said that sometimes after they've transplanted a heart into a patient, the heart doesn't start to beat on its own. And they can't figure out why, because everything's working. They will get down next to the person and whisper their name and say, "You need to tell that heart to beat again." Wow. And then the heart will start to beat.
Wow.
And I just thought, as you said that about your, you know, the defibrillator and stuff, you do sort of die when your child dies.
Yeah.
And so you started your heart again.
Yeah. And I don't know if anything, I do think that was probably God coming in and taking us down that road. Because it was almost like I needed someone else who needed me that much.
Yeah.
And who I mean, he's 2. He's completely, it's his world, you know, like, sorry, he doesn't care if I'm crying. He wants his milk now, like, okay.
Yeah.
And, but also the need of a child who had just been taken from his home.
Yeah.
You think he's hurting too. You know, he's hurting too.
Can up your compassion ability to where it takes it, and not this is not a judgment at all, but when it's so inward focused because your world has been so ripped apart, it finally gets you to where you can start focusing outward a little bit again and moving into that space. And it's not like we ever move past this trauma. We move through it. Yeah. And you keep it continues with you, but you learn and you grow. And a phrase that I've heard recently is post-traumatic growth. Have you heard about that?
I have not.
We all know about post-traumatic stress, but post-traumatic growth is when we begin to heal from our trauma and from our grief, and it makes us into somebody that maybe we never would have been had we not gone through it. And it's good things. Yeah. And we can actually grow in a more positive way and become a better human than we ever would have been.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd take it all back and who cares?
Yeah.
But we can still grow because we can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
We can just keep moving forward.
Right. Right.
You know, Heidi, as we finish this up, is there anything else you want to share about Elliot, about your family, about your faith, just anything that's kind of sitting on you that you want to make sure we get in here?
I would just, without trying to spark controversy or anything.
Go ahead, spark away.
Okay, let me start. I, and probably other people who have been through trauma or loss, especially maybe the death of a child, can resonate with sometimes the hardest, most hurtful things come from people of faith, well-meaning people, and
a quoted Bible verse at just the wrong time.
yes, and that what people really need and what the most compassionate people have done for me have simply been there, said, this sucks, I miss him too, I'm so sad this happened.
Mm-hmm. Let me sit with you.
Let me sit with you, and you tell me anything you want to tell me. It just, I have friends who are just like that, and I feel so safe with them.
Mm-hmm.
And yet the people who've tried to comfort me with Bible verses or God has a plan, God's in control, you know, they're the ones I feel less safe with.
You know, after my dad died, I had some of that too. And a dad and a child are totally different, but this is my little story. I remember one day I was pacing around my house because you know how you're in a zombie for months?
Yep.
And I didn't know what I was doing and just pacing around. And this is how I think scripture should be used in times like this. God will bring it to you.
Yes, yes.
When you're ready.
Yep.
And this wasn't even a scripture, but I felt God reassure me one day that it was just this life.
Yeah.
And if he had said that earlier, I would have been offended.
Yeah.
What do you mean just this life? My whole life I'm not going to have my dad. Your
Yeah.
whole life you're not going to have Elliot.
Yeah.
But at that point in time when he spoke
You were
that
ready.
into my heart, I was ready to hear it. And now it's been 22 years and I start getting excited like, ooh,
Yeah.
I'm going to see my dad again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, so people,
Yeah.
you know, please,
Right.
just, if you have never been through it, acknowledge you've never been through it and you don't know what to do, because you don't.
Right. Right.
And if you have been through it, chances are you know
Yeah.
how to help somebody.
Right.
You know, and if that's all anybody gets out of this,
Yeah.
this podcast is absolutely worth it. Absolutely. Because there's a lot of hurting people out there.
There are a lot of hurting people.
Yeah. Heidi, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I so admire your bravery because I know this is tough. And it's one thing to do it with somebody over coffee. It's another thing with a camera and mics in your face and all of that. So thank you.
Yeah,
I really
thank
appreciate
you.
it. Yeah. Thank you all for joining us, and come on back next time here on Broken and Brilliant with Carrie O'Toole Ministries.